We are now in step 39, which we will be focusing on setting tabs and indents. The first thing we will do is open up step 39, and I will cheat and open from my recent. Once you get the document open, you will save this document as Parks. Okay, so tabs are useful for indenting paragraphs and lining up columns of text. Word defaults tab sets at every half an inch. So let's go ahead and look at this right now. The first thing we need to do is make sure that if you do not have your ruler on your screen, simply go to your View tab and make sure this ruler box is checked. We also need to turn on continuous numbers. So let's go to our page layout. Our line numbers, drop down on the arrow and select continuous, and it puts the numbers just like our previous document all the way down. It just makes it easier to know which lines you are referencing. And then on your home tab, let's turn on our show hide, which are our non-printing characters. Alright, so we are now ready to get started. Position the insertion point anywhere in line 3. Using your keyboard, you will press tab 3 times. Notice that after you press tab 3 times, it places 3 arrows on the screen. These are our tab defaults set at every half-inch mark. So basically the space based on the ruler would be 0.5 spaces. Alright, so position the insertion point anywhere on line 4. And click your tab selector to the right. So here's my tab selector, and it immediately gave me my screen tip to let me know that I was on my right tab. However, if you're not on your right tab, simply click the button, click your mouse until you get to the right tab. And remember, if you are unsure, use your screen tip. Alright, so the reason why we selected our right tab is because we're going to be working with our right margins. Now, the default of the right margin is set at 6.5 or 6.5 on the ruler, but we want our text to stop on the 5-inch mark. So we want to set our page up for the 5-inch mark. So let's go ahead and get started with that. In line 4, we've selected our right tab, and we're going to mark the ruler on the 5-inch mark by simply clicking on the 5-inch mark. And notice that same symbol that we use to identify our right tab marked on the 5-inch mark. So then you're going to get your right indent and drag it over on top of the 5-inch mark. Position the insertion point in between Monument and April 11th and press tab. So when you did that, April 11th should have stopped right under the 5-inch mark because we set that tab. Now, click anywhere in line 6. Notice when we clicked in line 6, the tab was removed. And the reason is because we only set the tab up for line 4. So let's click back in line 4, and it appears back on our ruler. Anywhere else in the document, it disappears because again, we only set the tab up for line 4. So the next thing we'll do is select lines 5 through 24. And let's see, we don't want to include the paragraph marker for line 25, just lines 5 through 24. And click the tab selector up, mess my selection up. So let me go back and do that again. Okay, so go back, and this time we want to get our tab selector. And remember, if you don't know, use your screen tips. So we actually want the decimal tab that I just passed up. Okay, here we go. Mark your ruler on the 3-inch mark. Say, for example, you didn't mean to mark your ruler on the 3-inch mark, so instead of ignoring it, you can simply drag it off by clicking on the marker and dragging it down with your mouse, and it disappears. So anytime you mark your ruler incorrectly, you can just simply drag the marker off the ruler. Alright, so with lines 5 through 24 still selected, we will click on our 5-inch mark, move our ruler over to the, oh, I missed a step. Let's go back, and we need to change this back to right, because remember, we're working with our right indent. Okay, so now that I have my right tab set, I need to drag this off because I marked my ruler on accident, and click again, and notice I have my right marker, which is what I want. And then get your right indent and drag it over to the 5-inch mark, and watch what happens. Notice all of your text that was selected in lines 5 through 24 now line up with the 5-inch mark. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is get our dates. So you need to click in between Park and April 18th on line 9, press tab. Click in between Park and April 25th on line 16 and press tab. And the reason why we were able to actually line these up without resetting the margins is because we selected our whole text and we had already set our tab at the 5-inch mark, so it was still set, and it knew to stop the tab at the 5-inch mark. So that makes it kind of nice when you can do it all at one time. Alright, so with lines, now we want to select lines 4 through 28. So you should have all of your text selected except your title. And with lines 4 through 28 selected, we want to click on our left tab marker, because this time we're going to work on our left side of. Alright, so mark your 1/2-inch mark, and I notice that I have a marker here on the 1-inch mark that I need to drag off. And now we're ready to move our left indent to our 1/2-inch mark. So click on the little box and the whole thing should drag over. And notice all of your text lined up nicely to follow. Okay, so with lines 4 through 28 still selected, this time we want to click on the 3/4 inch marker. So 3/4, here's 0.5, here's 1, will be right here smack in the middle. So you want to mark it there, but this time we're going to drag the hanging indent marker. So the arrow pointing down is your first line indent. The arrow pointing up, trying to get the screen tip, it's kind of hard because it's all kind of like a package deal. But basically what we want to do is move the top arrow. So if you click there, click here, drag it over, notice the top arrow stayed intact, and we're going to move that to the 3/4 inch. And that's considered a hanging indent because everything, this is your title, and this is a paragraph. This is all a paragraph. These 4 lines are a paragraph, and it's opposite of indenting the first line. With the hanging indent, everything under the first line is actually indented. And all of our paragraphs have been set up like that. Alright, again, practice, practice, practice. Hopefully I didn't confuse you too much. Again, the more you practice these skills, the better you will be setting up your margins and your tab sets. It does get easier. Go ahead and select save this step, and I will see you on the next step.